Welcome to the Green Dialogue, everyone. And today we've got was suggested that we have a conversation with electric vehicle owners as one of our dialogues. If you've got suggestions for future speakers or dialogues, please feel free to share them in the chat window or pipe up towards the end of the conversation. I want to thank Keith Chapman for joining us. I just learned that he was an EV owner, and John Sarver on our energy team. And Roger is also on our energy team joining us. We may have some additional EV owners popping in here. So what I'd like to do is just open it up and maybe invite Roger. Would you like to start just to sort of briefly share your experience? Then we can go to Keith and John can fight over who goes next. We'll keep it fairly brief and have most of this related to the dialogue questions that you have. So I'll stop talking and let you start, Roger.
Sure, be glad to. I think I can share a screen. Let me see what happens if I do that. Maybe not.
You should be able to share your screen.
Yeah, well, I've got a little PDF thing here and I don't know how to do that. So
we can come back to that too if you like,
yeah.
or somebody else wants to start, that's fine.
Oh, that's all right. No, I can just go ahead and start. I don't need to necessarily have my little pictures up. I have a Hyundai Ioniq 5 that my wife and I bought last summer. And it's our first full EV, although we've had a series of plug-in hybrids over the last, let me think, 8 years now. We first bought our first plug-in hybrid about 8 years ago. And they're great. We really like the plug-in hybrids a lot, but we decided we were ready for full electric. So we went with the Hyundai Ioniq 5, which has turned out to be just the perfect car for us. Both of us agree it's the best car we've ever owned. It's our second vehicle. We do also have a Toyota SUV that we use for trips and for towing. But for our local use, all errands, dog walks, trips to the store, whatever we want to do, the Hyundai is just perfect. It has a significant range that we don't really use much because we're just using it locally. Our longest trip so far has been only 60 miles, which is just a drop in the bucket of its 300+ mile range. And we're learning a lot about EVs as we go. We've learned that winter mileage is significantly less than summer mileage, but that's fine. For our use, it makes no major difference to us. Our car has a heat pump for heating and air conditioning, and overall it's remarkably efficient. We're getting about, well over 4 miles per kilowatt hour. So we can do a lot of local driving on just a few kilowatt hours of power. We charge it with both utility as well as with an off-the-grid solar system in our backyard. We have a 3 kilowatt solar system that charges up some storage batteries, and we can charge our car with the solar a lot this time of year. Almost entirely with solar in the summer and almost none in the winter. So it's a seasonal balance with solar charging. And the rest of the time we plug it into the utility. And this is all level 2 charging. We can do level 2 charging with our solar system too, because we have a big battery bank. It's about 10% of the car's power. So we have a significant storage capacity for our solar. And that's been fun. We also have a solar system that's grid tied. So certain times of the day, we can also charge it with solar plugged into the utility, but actually coming from our home. So overall, it's been a wonderful experience for EV for us, given our usage. And we're eager to try it out on a trip. Hyundai gave us 2 free years of Charging at Electrify America. So we're going to be trying that out this summer just to see how all that works and check out the trip-related functions of our car. Otherwise, it's been just a really wonderful experience, and I can certainly recommend it for our uses. So I think that's all I had to say right now.
Keith, would you like to go next? Thanks. Keith is one of our planning staff here at the township and has a pretty significant commute every day. What's your
Yeah,
story, Keith?
yeah, thanks. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Keith Chapman, Associate Planner here at the Township. So I actually have a unique experience in that I live in Grand Rapids. So I commute 70 miles one way every day. So when it came time for my wife and I to find a new vehicle, we were looking at ways to sort of reduce the financial burden of gas prices basically at the time. So we decided to go the EV route, and I have a 2023 Chevy Bolt. So both of my grandparents worked for General Motors, and I get the lovely $2,500 friends and family discount for new vehicles. Plus, at the time, there was a $7,500 rebate, so it was kind of hard to pass up not getting that vehicle. One of the challenges that I do have is that my car only has a range of 230 miles. It gets really close in the wintertime because of the cold weather battery degradation. So I lose approximately 20 to 25% of my battery just because of cold weather, and that's typically under like 30 degrees or so. It gets significantly worse if we get into like the single digits, then I start having really bad problems. But I mean, so far I've never ran out of power, so I haven't had any issues, so I can't really complain. But yeah, other than that, consumers, they came out with a program that I'm on Consumers Energy, so they had a program where they'd give you $500 towards your 240 installation. So I had to get a level 2 charger installed. And also GM was giving out $1,000 to pay for the electrician to come out basically and install everything. So I think it was like, it ended up being like $1,200 to have all the work done. So it was all covered. And also Consumers offers off-peak charging rates as well. So it saves me money from 11 p.m. to I think it's 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. where it's like, I think I save a couple cents per kilowatt hour during that time frame. So that's nice. But other than that, I mean, that's really all I have.
Awesome. Well, let's let John go, and then we can open up for questions. And thanks, Keith.
Yeah, I have a Tesla Model Y long range that I've had for about a year and a half now, and there's also a performance model, but I didn't see necessarily the advantage of getting to 60 miles per hour in 4 seconds rather than 6 seconds, so you can buy a high performance model if I guess you want to do some drag racing. But I was more interested in having some extra batteries to increase the range. And I like Keith, I'm on Consumers Energy Night Savers plan 11 to 6. So I always locally just charge it overnight, which is, and actually I've learned a few things about charging because you're supposed to only charge it to about 80%. That helps with the battery if you charge it to 100% and go way down. That's apparently takes away some life from the battery. But I've also had, I have a couple daughters in the East Coast, so I've made the trip East Coast, many times now. And of course, it's a long interstate, so that makes it easy. But the Tesla supercharger network is just fantastic. In fact, I'm not sure how well I would have done on a long range trip if I didn't have a Tesla, but I've never had a problem finding a supercharger. There's always been spaces available. And actually, most recently, I ended up driving my car to Brooklyn and parking in my daughter's condo underground parking ramp, and they actually had installed chargers for all the vehicles. So I was able to kind of plug in at her condo because I wasn't driving in New York City. I left the car at her place and took Uber and cabs and stuff to get around New York City. Actually, one thing that recently happened, I was a little surprised. My daughter in Brooklyn just sold her condo, and the new owner was asking about the EV charging because he also has a Tesla, and so I thought that was interesting. In the process of her selling her condo, the EV charger issue actually came up, which I guess is a good sign that people are talking about that. So I've had no issues yet, no maintenance issues. If I did have like a collision, I realized after I bought the car, it would be a problem because not that it couldn't be dealt with. I'd have to take the car to Clarkston, Grand Rapids, or Ann Arbor. And since I only have one car and I'm just, single, that would probably present some challenges. So I have to be careful I don't get in any accidents, which is the case anyway. So my experience so far has been good. And, the charging is an issue, but for my lifestyle and the type of driving I do, it hasn't been an issue at all. That's it for me.
I'd give you a ride, John.
Oh, well, thank you.
Let's open it up to questions or comments. I'm sure there's a few, and it's okay to think about what questions you have or anything you'd like to add, Roger or Keith.
Roger, you were the other two talked about their range. What's the range on your Hyundai?
It's 320 miles.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, mine is technically 330 something, but in a practical sense, that's not how it works because of, it's been mentioned during the winter how much you lose. But the other thing is you don't want to get too low, right? So I was in New Jersey once and pulled into a fast charger and had 1% of my battery left, and that's not ideal. Because so if you think in terms of a practical range, it's not what they say because especially if you're driving long trips, it takes to go from like 20 to 80% of your battery takes like 20 minutes, but to get from the 80% to 100% takes another 15, 20 minutes. And so you kind of learn pretty quickly that if you're on a long range trip, you don't, unless you have to, ever charge it to 100%. And so that decreases your range. And then, of course, you don't want to drive into the fast charger with only 1% left either. So, I think in a practical sense, my range, even though it's supposed to be 330, is something more like 200 something.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something to that too. So I know in the first generation Bolts, they had issues with the battery catching on fire. So they actually built in kind of like a safety protocol that stops the battery from charging above the 80%. So like in reality, my car only charges up to like 195, 200 miles instead of the 230 range that it's supposed to be.
So you'll be happy when we get our charger here at the township office, right, Keith?
Yeah, I mean, like I said though, I've had it for a year and a half now, and I haven't really, I don't think I've gotten below like 10 miles, to be honest with you. So I haven't had too many close calls.
Good to hear. What other questions are other people thinking about an electric vehicle, or what are your reservations?
I drive all over the country, and so we've had a hybrid, we're on a second, but we have Prius just to be able to not have that, when I drive 500 miles, well, not in a day, but like, when I drive long distance, we've stayed with a Prius just to not have that risk of running out or whatever. So for us at this point, we're staying with hybrid, but I know long-term eventually I'll switch over. So this is good to hear, to just kind of be able to take in some of the information for when that time comes.
Do any of you have experience with the plug-in hybrids?
Yeah, my wife and I have had 3 of them. We had a Ford, a Honda, and an Audi. And those were our primary use cars, other than towing, which we always did with our Toyota SUV. And the plug-in hybrids were great for their practicality and utility. It was really nice to be able to run everything locally on electricity, and then have the gas engine for trips that we took with them. They were all really nice cars in their own way. And we appreciated the plug-in hybrid a lot. I wish that manufacturers were making more of those and had more models available. All it really requires beyond a regular hybrid is just a slightly larger battery and a way to charge them in the car. So it doesn't add a lot of extra cost to a standard hybrid to make it a plug-in hybrid. And I'm hoping that we'll see more of those as the manufacturers ramp up electrified vehicles in general. So I'm a big fan of the plug-in hybrids. We just decided to go full electric because we didn't really need the gasoline engine in the local vehicle that we use.
Thanks. I heard from a friend. Oh, go ahead, Sam.
Well, it's so I had a question, I guess, about some of the things you're talking about that really interested me were actually several of you mentioned the rebates and, I guess deals that you can get from various places. I know some of them are based on family working at GM or Ford, but for me, I mean, I definitely want to get into an electric vehicle. The big deterrent is we have 2 cars that are paid for, and so it's real hard to and they're both running great. So it's hard to just jump into a new car when you don't need one. But at some point that's going to happen. We're going to need one, and I'm just curious about, with all the bargains out there. I mean, little research I've done, the sticker price kind of scares me, but with all the bargains, is it kind of getting close to, I mean, how does it compare to a gas powered vehicle right now with the bargains?
There's a lot of models out now from different manufacturers. Tesla actually has captured quite a bit of the EV market in the United States, but you know, there's a lot of more models to choose from, and some of them are getting more affordable. Teslas aren't affordable, you know, for a lot of people. And so that is, I think, going to get better. And so, yeah, Sam, I think the ability for you to kind of wait and shop around and think about it is a real plus. And the other thing is, I don't know if I'd recommend an EV if somebody only had one car in the family, because it really does. I mean, I've been able to manage it fine, but it really does uh, make planning more challenging if you don't have a vehicle that can kind of go long range anywhere. And so, yeah, the ideal situation, I think, is two cars, one EV, one hybrid, probably, or maybe gasoline even temporarily. Because then a lot of issues kind of evaporate, you know, because the one challenging issue, I think, too, is, you know, almost all of us are charging in a garage overnight, which makes it more economical. If I was in an apartment, or you know, or didn't have a garage, yeah, that would make me think twice because of the just the complications with charging, and also you know, you're exposing the battery to colder weather. I mean, my garage isn't conditioned, but it's still a lot warmer than the outside. So there's at this point in time, I think there's a lot of things for people to think about before they kind of jumped in to buy an EV. So I think this sort of discussion is important to kind of let people know the reality, because there's a bunch of things I never thought about before I bought mine.
Yeah, and I agree with John that it's nice to have the luxury of being able to shop around. We took some time before we bought our EV to really look at the market and see where the deals were and see what was going on. It was a time when there were some significant shifts in the federal tax credit and what was available and which cars were eligible and so on. And we like I said, we took our time and really we thought about where the deals were. And at the time we bought, which was the middle of last summer, I assume they're still doing it. I don't know this for sure, but Hyundai was offering a pretty remarkable deal. They recognized that their vehicles were not eligible for the U.S. federal tax credit because they're not made in North America. But they were offering the $7,500 off of the MSRP as a direct rebate from Hyundai. In addition to that, and just sort of the recognition that that was a valuable discount on the vehicle, they offered a free charge point level 2 charger installation at your home. And they offered the 2 years of free charging at public chargers at Electrify America system, which, by the way, is nothing like the Tesla system. In any event, overall, it was a significant financial incentive to jump into EV, and it brought the overall cost of the vehicle and the operation of the vehicle down actually well below the national average for a new car purchase right now. So if you look around, if you pay attention to what's going on in the market, if you think about what's eligible and what isn't for various tax credits, and maybe take advantage of some things like other folks on here have, you can bring the cost down to a reasonable number. And then I would also add that EVs have a significantly lower operating costs in terms of maintenance and repairs. There really isn't much to them. There's a battery and a motor, and well, a couple of motors, and a few components you'd find in a normal vehicle like brakes and shock absorbers. But you know, you miss all of that engine maintenance and all the transmission maintenance and all the differential maintenance and all of the stuff that goes along with a gas or in some cases diesel engine. And our car has almost no recommended maintenance. It's just like it just sits there and runs. And so you take it into the dealer once a year for a tire rotation, and then, they plug it into the computer and make sure that it's electrically okay, and you're out of there. So we got something like, I think it was 4 years of free maintenance, but there really isn't anything to do.
Jim? Welcome.
Good morning, everybody. This is my first time being here, so let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Jim Koenig. I'm from the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission. I had your meeting invite forwarded to me from one of our sustainability planners, Amanda Hathaway Federelli. You probably have seen her on here before. So I can't contribute too much. I just want to listen in. I actually I don't do too much with EVs or hybrids or anything like that. I have an internal combustion car that gets probably 20 miles per gallon, so I really can't contribute too much to the conversation. But I do live in Meridian Township. I actually sit on one of the boards, one of the minor boards that Keith is actually staffed to as well. So Keith, I didn't know you're from Grand Rapids. I feel bad now for keeping you until like 7:30, 8 o'clock and making you drive back late at night.
It's only once a month, so
Right, but I'm sure
It's
it's
all right.
it's long enough. I
It
know.
is,
My
yeah.
apologies from the board, but I have kind of I guess a real being my first time on here. Great information. I took down some notes for myself. I know that emerging technologies is something that we consider in our long range transportation plan. That's our required plan through the feds. It's kind of, still new and up and coming, but it's out there, and there's just not a lot of, there's information out there, but it's still kind of what's accurate, what's not. It's all trial and error on some of these things. But I guess my question is kind of the $100,000 bonehead question coming from someone who owns an ICE vehicle is, I remember back in the early 2000s, maybe 2002 or three, when hybrids were starting to get hot, there was a news article came out and it listed about 4 or 5 hybrids. Obviously the Prius was the number one, but it showed a timeline. It showed in years, essentially, how long it would take, because the price of hybrids were so much higher, let's say, 30, 20, 15,000 higher than a gas powered car at the time. The amount of money you save in gasoline from using the hybrid, multiply that every month on average times 12 months a year, how long it would take you to reap those benefits in just saving in gas money using a hybrid. And it was crazy. I think the Toyota Prius was number one, and it was something like 7 years or something like that it would take you before you saw the benefits of using a hybrid over the gasoline. So now we're transitioning into full EVs. And my question for you guys that have these EVs is, how long did it really take for you to see the benefits of, you're plugging it in, you're using electricity in your home or a business or wherever, the cost of charging the vehicle versus the cost of filling up a gas tank? Like, how long did it take you to really see the benefit of that? Did it take within your first month, your first week? Did it take you 6 months to really go, wow, I'm really saving a lot of gas money? I've always wanted to know that question and haven't really had the chance to talk specifically to people who own these EVs. So I'm glad I kind of jumped on here.
Yeah, so I can talk about that a little bit. So when I first purchased my vehicle, I haven't ran the numbers lately because honestly, I don't keep track of gas prices because I don't fill up often. We do have another vehicle. It's a 2023 Blazer that's gas powered, but it doesn't get used much. So I think when I figured it out, I was saving about 35 to 40% per week on money based on the difference between the electric and the gas. I was spending like $120 a week, I think, on gas going back and forth, and it kind of works out to be, my billing period's like 31 days for consumers, so it was like, I want to say $300 to $350 in energy costs. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, my Tesla app tells me how much I save, but I don't really believe it. They basically indicate I'm saving about 50% on fuel. So the electricity's, half the cost of the gasoline. But the Tesla will never pay for itself. I wouldn't even want to do a payback period because it'd be like 150 years or something because, Teslas are cheap. But if you really were going for saving bucks, there's more affordable models now. Yeah, if you're looking for an economic uh, savings, probably you don't want to look at Teslas too closely. I did have a recent kind of, I guess, fun experience because I got a note from Tesla that they had loaded up supervised self-driving. And so I now usually for just for a month because it usually costs $12,000, which to me is ridiculous for software. But so I kind of thought, okay, I couldn't figure out how to make it work, which is a problem. And then I took the tutorial, and then I got more confused. And then I watched a YouTube video of a guy who had just tried it out for the first time, and he's kind of zipping along. He put in his destination, the car pulled out by itself and started driving. And here I noticed that I'm sitting on my couch, watching the YouTube video, and I'm getting nervous just watching the car drive itself. Because, the car is changing lanes, speeding up, going around roundabouts. The driver's just sitting there in the driver's seat in case something goes wrong. And I came to the conclusion I'm not quite ready for self-driving autonomous cars yet. Maybe down the road.
In terms of fuel costs, my experience mirrors that of Keith and John. It's about half the cost of operating a similar vehicle on gasoline. That depends a little bit on the price of gasoline. Well, actually, a lot on the price of gasoline. But sort of on average, over our ownership of both the plug-in hybrids as well as the full EV, it's been approximately half the cost. And I've never really looked at it as a sort of a value proposition because I've treated the EVs as something that's different, that's so much better that the money is less relevant. I mean, the EVs are just wonderful. They're quiet, they're smooth, they're powerful, they're fun to drive. It's really a completely different experience. So it's not exactly an apples to apples comparison from gas to electric in terms of operation. And if I were buying a plug-in hybrid again, I would consider it just like any other option, just like getting, leather seats or a sunroof or whatever. Those options don't, pay you back, so to speak. They're just, fun things to have in your car and make the car better and nicer. So beyond the money, it's really nice to drive an EV. Those of you that need the experience, by all means, go check one out somewhere.
Yeah, kind of. I've never purchased a vehicle thinking that it was a good investment, but um, when I purchased mine, I got all the amenities that I wanted, minus the self-driving component, which was I think they wanted like 3 or 4 extra grand in order to have that. But I was like, I'm a little weary of it. It does have the adaptive cruise, which it can be nice. It's also a little strange when you're in a lot of traffic, but it's nice to not have to push the gas pedal all the time. But in terms of costs, I'm probably on the lower end of the people here. So it was like I said, I had those rebates. I had like 10 grand in rebates. So overall it was like 40 grand, and I ended up paying 30 out the door. So
Mike, I think, is up next, and these are great comments and a great question, Jim. Yeah,
Yeah, I kind of I'm seriously considering, in fact, am going to either uh probably early part of summer buy an EV. And one of the considerations for me, I agree with Rogers, beyond just the financial and what you're saving. I'm a big believer that we need to take our own responsibility for the global warming process. And that is part of it. I mean, they didn't come up with EVs because they had nothing to do. I mean, there was a reason to start having the EVs in the first place, and it was to deal with some of the global warming. And I know I've made my significant contribution to that over the years, and I'm trying to take some responsibility and cut back on that. I feel a little less guilty. I mean, we got a hybrid. It's not a plug-in hybrid, but it gets tremendous gas mileage, and I feel a little less guilty driving that versus my pure ICE car. So, I think there's other considerations beyond the financial considerations. And even if you talk about financial considerations, you pay for it in other ways. There's increased insurance costs, increased food costs, and lots of other things that's costing us because of global warming. So, I think there's a bigger picture to take in consideration on that issue.
I learned this morning, just trying to dig up a couple of facts on electric vehicles, that Norway is banning internal combustion engine and diesel car sales as of 2025. I'm not, don't believe everything you read on internet, but I thought that was interesting that the country is actually phasing out internal combustion. Probably kind of related to that reason you share there, Mike. Any other thoughts or questions?
I think it's important to, this wouldn't necessarily be for everybody. The fun factor is it's important, right? Which is probably why a lot of people buy different things. People used to joke about with energy efficiency that you don't have a payback for your fishing boat, but you're enjoying it, right? So, yeah, I mean, I've never taken people in my basement and shown them, oh, look, my energy efficient furnace, isn't it beautiful? Or oh, look at all the insulation. That's pretty, but with with an EV, especially at this stage, of course, at some point it'll probably be so common that it's no big deal. But I don't know how many people I've taken just on a test drive because they're kind of curious and were interested in it, or just, talk to people about my experience. People have a lot of questions, and yeah, nobody's ever asked me a question about energy efficient furnace, but boy, I get a lot of questions about EVs, and it is fun. I mean, it's such a different experience. Whenever I drive people, they're always commenting on, boy, this is just, smooth and pleasant, and so it's.
I would also note that Tesla is opening up the supercharger network to other manufacturers. And over the next couple of years, there will be the possibility that some manufacturers will take advantage of that and provide adapters. Someone mentioned earlier that disconnect between some of the connections, but there's really only two. There's just in North America anyway, there's really just only two. There's the Tesla power adapter, and then there's the the rest of the manufacturer's power adapter, which are all standard. But if Tesla opens up the supercharger network, that will be at least for most people who use it, that'll be a lot better for long trips.
Yeah, it won't be better for me personally because I may pull in
No,
now
sorry,
to
John.
the supercharger and it'd be full of all these Fords and
Yeah,
GM cars.
yeah,
And I was thinking, oh boy, who let them in?
yeah.
But
Oh,
I'm guessing that at some point, in a practical sense, the EV charging network for long distance will basically be Tesla. because their system is so much better than everybody else, and now that they're letting the other folks in.
Well, it's really this
Yeah.
major limiting factor for EV adoption and getting them sold in North America is the charging infrastructure for long distance travel. So there's a lot to be done there. Fortunately, there's some significant federal money coming into that, and we'll see a big increase in the overall charging network over the next few years. But that's right now the limiting factor for EV adoption.
Yeah, if I'm planning a trip back east, they make it about as easy as you can get. You in the navigation system, you put in your destination. They put on the map the 2 or 3 places you're supposed to stop for charging. They tell you when you get to point A, you'll have 20% left. So they make it real easy to plan trips. So you'd have to almost be an idiot to run out of electricity if you're at least in the Tesla system. And boy, they give you the navigation system is just like, get off at this exit, take a right, take a left, and there you are.
Yeah.
They got these 10 stations, so they're actually pretty easy to identify. I've never had a problem finding a Tesla supercharger. But I've noticed some other chargers are kind of off in a corner somewhere.
Right, for sure.
If, how easy it is for people to find them. I don't know. Don't have to worry about it.
They have what they call.
Yeah, so Chevrolet has a similar navigation type system where you just plug in the trip destination and it'll tell you all the chargers along the way. They're typically, in my experience, it's always at like a gas station. There are some car dealerships, but typically it's going to be a gas station that you're going to go charge at.
I think Sam and then Sarah, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Well, this is really great conversation, and I just first want to applaud what Mike was saying about the benefits for the climate change issue, and how what a great feeling that you're contributing to mitigate that problem when you have an EV. And so like I said before, although I don't need one right now, I'm looking forward to the time when we can buy one, or we'll have to buy one, I guess is the case. But I think just to contribute here, we are really on the early edge of this whole technology. And thinking back, I mean, not that I was around then, I mean, it was a few years before I was born, but when people started driving cars and were breaking their arms on the cranks to get them going, and the infrastructure wasn't there for any traffic lights, people were smashing up on with horse buggies, and there was a huge resentment for the whole transition from true horsepower to gasoline combustion engines that then all of a sudden changed the world. So and you're talking about these charging stations. I'm living up here, as a lot of up sort of up north between Taos and Oscoda, and they're going in all over the place, in the parks, the parking lots, in the Myers parking lots. I mean, we're seeing charging stations everywhere, and people are at them. They're using them. So this is happening. It's definitely something that's in a few years it's going to be pretty common, I'm sure, which is exciting. It's great. I'm all for it. Unfortunately, I'm going to say fortunately, one of our cars is over 20 years old. It's a Toyota MR2 with a 5-speed on the floor, top down. And, I don't know how I'm ever going to give that driving experience up if we actually go all the way EV, because yeah, that's a great idea, being an electric car, but it's hard to beat 5-speed on the floor with a top down too. So just for what it's worth.
I have had this question and totally forgot and wanted to say, so when you go to the charging, do you just put your credit card in? Like, how does that work to charge the car? Because aren't you having to pay for the charge?
Well, you have an account, like, I have an account with Tesla, and I have an account with other type of charging systems. So, you go to an app, you set up an account, you put in a credit card. And so when I pull in, basically, you just take the hose and stick it in. You don't have to do anything else, because the charging station will know who you are, knows your car, and then whatever, and then they bill your credit card.
So then how much does that usually cost you?
Of course, it depends a lot on your situation, but I just got my bill from trip back east, and each supercharger was about $20 around that. But now that's not a full charge, because again, I'm pulling in at 20% and going to 80%. But that's and to go back east, I had of course I don't mind stopping anyway for lunch, use the facilities and whatever. So me stopping 3 times is not a big deal between here and New Jersey. But I like stopped 3 times. So, I spent like 60, $70 going back east.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. I recently heard from a friend that they were able to purchase a reconditioned Bolt at about substantial savings from what they were expecting to pay. I don't know. I didn't find out where they had purchased it, probably through a dealership, but that was sort of interesting to me. If you can get a recalled Bolt that's been reconditioned at a substantial discount. So I'm not much one for buying a new car. Never owned a new car, and
well, there is a federal rebate right now for used EVs. It's a $4,000 rebate for EVs that are more than 1 model year old and less than $25,000. So that's a significant savings for used EVs if you buy one from a dealer. And that may be part of that Bolt deal that you were talking about there. But we certainly looked carefully at used EVs because of that federal rebate. That makes a used EV that's less than $25,000 a remarkably good deal.
we have about 10 more minutes. What other questions or topics would people like to address in the last 10 minutes or so? Or if you have announcements, things you want to share. Thank you so much to our speakers, Keith, John, and Roger. Tim Schmidt was hoping to be here, but he recently was appointed township manager. And so his hands are a little more full than they were when he committed to zooming in a couple weeks ago. But he also drives a Bolt. And Keith, you've probably talked to him about his experience, but do you want to say anything about your boss's situation?
Yeah, so I mean, he was a first generation Bolt owner. I think he actually, no, I think he leased his. So he's had his quite a bit longer, but he just got the same year as me, so 2023 Bolt. But his car is literally almost exactly like my car. So there's really not a whole lot to say.
Got to be careful which one you get in at after work.
Well, his is white, mine's
Oh.
gray, so
Oh,
that's the only difference.
But it's not shown on the.
okay. Any other comments or topics, questions, or suggestions for future topics? Well, thank you all for tuning in today. It's been a pretty rich dialogue. I'll get the recording up on YouTube if you want to revisit. And look forward to seeing you. It's an open dialogue next week. So whatever you want to talk about is fine, unless we get a speaker that agrees to participate. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yep, thanks.
Thanks, Leroy. See ya.
Thank you, Jim. I hope you come back. Peter, have a good day.